Alrighty, what is up, guys? We'll go ahead and get started in a couple minutes. If you want to chat it up, definitely message me about any questions or things that you want to see within the broadcast itself. So it'll be a good time. Just give me a couple minutes to get things situated, and we will start talking about all things WWDC, which will be really fun. Hello, guys on Periscope. If you want to see a more formal put together version, go to Initial Focus channel on YouTube. That's where I'm live streaming as well. Or feel free to stay on Periscope. I will be answering questions from all the different chats. And I want this to really be interactive. So as I go through the different things, today we're going to talk about iOS 10, the next version of Mac, and hopefully some new hardware that will be coming out. So I really would love for you guys to chat it up and ask questions. I think I have questions hidden on Periscope. Let's see here. All right. I think I can see your questions on Periscope. Usually it tells me when people are joining, but it is not right now, so that's okay. Let's see here. What are you guys most excited about for WWDC? And for those of you who don't know, WWDC is Apple's big event of the year. It's their worldwide developer conference, where the main part of it is going to be software. That's where they always release a new version of iOS and macOS, and then sometimes we are graced with new hardware. So it just really depends where on the year and what Apple wants to come out with, because obviously they do not talk about that ahead of time. Let's tweet out the live stream here. Boom. Tweet. Alrighty. Once we get some more people in here, we'll go ahead and get started. Where are you guys from? Whoever's watching. Thank you. Can't pronounce it, but appreciate that. I'm working on it. From Brazil. That's awesome. It's not good that my dog's barking. Probably go take care of that real quick. I'll be right back. Gotta love dogs. I love to bark at everything. So you're from Brazil. That is awesome. Love to have international watchers as well. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. I apologize for the dog barking in the background. Hopefully she stops in a couple minutes. All right, so first thing we're going to talk about here is going to be iOS 10, since that, of course, is the big update that everyone gets, sometimes doesn't want to jump to. Ever since the iOS 7 fiasco, no one really wants to, always download it on the first day. It usually takes a while. But what's it really going to have? What's the new iOS 10 going to have? Well, from all the predictions, now it's seems like it's going to be a pretty decent update. Again, it's not going to be a iOS 6 to iOS 7 where the whole thing is completely remade from scratch and totally redesigned, but it is going to have hopefully some pretty cool new features. So my guess is it'll have some of these, and if not, Apple always usually surprises us with a couple different extras as well. So the first thing is the Music app redesign. So some people, when Apple Music came out, they either really loved it or they really hated it. And I would love to know what you guys think of it as well. When they came out with the Android version of the Apple Music app, I actually like the Android version, the design of it, better than it is on the hello from Russia, And I actually like the way the menu structure and things like that is set up on the Android side of things compared to iOS. I think it's just like a cleaner look and easier to navigate. Maybe that's just me, but I would welcome a, kind of a tweak. They talked about changing the new category to like a browse, since sometimes I myself get confused. I do not speak Russian. Spasiba. I know that's thank you. My girlfriend is Russian, but I do not speak Russian, unfortunately. And so right now, a lot of what they're talking about is like the browse feature, because I know that I sometimes get confused when I go to the iTunes store, and I always get confused because I'm like, I pay for Apple Music. Why should I have to? Oh, what's up, Greg? And so sometimes I get confused whether or not I'm going to buy something compared to if I'm just listening to it on Apple Music. So I would very much welcome a design. I hope they take some design points from the Android app and bring it in to the iOS side of things. How you doing, Greg? By the way, for if you're on the YouTube chat right now, you'll see Greg's chatting, Greggles TV. He's an awesome guy. We do a live stream every Thursday. So what's today? Today is Wednesday, right? Yeah. So tomorrow night we'll be live streaming our podcast all about tech stuff. And it's really fun. You should definitely go subscribe to him. He's awesome. And congrats on your 1 year anniversary on YouTube. So he's an awesome channel. Go check him out. But moving on here, one thing that I would love to see is a raw photo. So on Android, I believe it was the last version, they announced that you could have you could take raw photos, which I would really, really love, because me personally, I haven't had a phone that has better photo processing than an iPhone, and I would absolutely love to see a setting or an option to save a raw photo. Yes, it would extremely fill up. Hopefully they finally get rid of that 16 gigs. And what do you guys think about that? Do you think, we all know Apple should get rid of the 16 gig and have a base 32, really even a 64, but do you guys think this will finally be the year? I know this isn't going to be WWDC. This is more later in the fall for iOS 7. Do you think that Apple will finally have 16 gigs go away? It has to. I think you're right, Greg. Even the people who use iPhones bare minimum, it's really hard, because once you have, after the operating system, you only have 11 or 12 gigs of storage anyway, and that's just really, really hard to do on a 16 gig. So I agree, it's been a long time coming, but it should be that the 16 gig is going away and the 32 gig should really be the baseline. But yeah, I would love to see raw photography. Apple's been in love with being the best at photos, or so they advertise. And they talk a lot about how it's the best pictures, and in their stores they have giant prints of photos. Well, imagine how much better that could be if they could just save a photo in the raw format. It would allow so much more editing, so much better color reproduction and things like that. So I would love to see raw photos. Another thing I would love to see, Matt on YouTube says 16 gigabit doesn't really bother me. I used to have a 16 gig success and never went over. Well, that's good to know that at least someone, but I'm sure that if for the same price you got a 32 gig, you also probably wouldn't be too upset with that either. So I think as a society, 16 gigs should really go away, but I'm glad to hear that your success, at least 16 gigs was enough for you. Another big thing I would love to see in iOS 10 is 3D touch improvements. And I don't mean that 3D touch doesn't work currently. I think it works very well, but they need to implement it more. And I know this is really the developer side of things, but I think 3D Touch needs to be in more places. I personally don't use it all the time, mostly because I don't think about it. I know that if it was everywhere and I got in the routine of doing it, it would really be a lot easier and a lot better. But I think they could do a lot more with it. I know one of the big rumors out is that in the control panel, so when you swipe up from the bottom, that you will be able to, 3D touch there. So like on the Wi-Fi button, instead of just toggling on and off, if I 3D touch it, maybe it will show me the top 3 networks that I can join, which would be really, really awesome. So I would love to see 3D touch in a lot more places. And because I think that is a unique feature. I'm not sure if there is any other Android phones that have 3D touch features. I mean, I'm sure there is someone with a 3D pressure sensitive phone. I know like the BlackBerry back in the day had something like that, but let me know if you can correct me on that. If there is an Android phone that has a 3D touch equivalent, I would love to see how it works on Android and things like that. And then last thing for iOS 10 that I think should really happen, and it's probably the biggest rumor for iOS 10, is the Siri developer kit. So finally being able to implement Siri everywhere. So right now, Siri is in Apple's command. No software developer can implement Siri directly within their own app, which I think kind of stinks. I get it. It's a security thing, whatever. Apple's obsessed with security, which is good. But I think it's finally time that Siri kind of started out with the iPhone 4 or 4S and I know it was its own standalone app and company before, but Apple really kind of took the reins in the beginning. It was like, wow, this, personal assistant, it's really awesome. And ever since then, it's really been a slow increase in features and how fast it is, and just kind of overall Siri has kind of gone from this cool new thing to not being developed that much. I think most people will agree with me that the Google Now or Google Voice is so much faster, so much significantly better at how fast it responds and the information it gives you when it responds. So I think Apple really needs to, if they want that kind of Google Home type feel where it's like a Jarvis type feel. I want to be able to sit here, and I know I can say like the Hey Siri thing, and I hope all my devices don't go crazy just now. But I know I can do that, but I want to be able to implement it more into different apps and have it control a lot more things. So Siri is going to be, I think, a really, really big part of this year's WWDC, and a lot of rumors are pointing to that, not just in iOS, but definitely the Mac operating system as well, where Siri is non-existent. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. And that actually is a good segue into Mac OS, what to come there. There's not a whole lot of rumors for Mac. Mac OS has always been pretty, stable and pretty significant updates. They always have some really, really cool smaller updates. And this year, the two biggest things that I've been able to find are kind of like iOS, the Apple Music redesigned or an iTunes redesigned, which, again, I'm not like super stoked for. I welcome a redesign if it's going to make the experience more seamless and easier. But I also don't really care and don't think the current design is terrible or anything. But the biggest thing with macOS is going to be Siri. There was a leaked kind of icon. Let me see if I can find it here. There was a leaked icon of the macOS having a Siri icon right next to the Finder. And see, there it is. I'll throw it up for you guys. I really think that in order to have a fully integrated experience, you shouldn't have to launch a separate app just to be able to have Siri integration. It should just be in the OS. You should be able to, hit function twice and or, some type of keystroke to bring up Siri and be able to ask her things and basically control your computer through Siri. It's time for Siri to be everywhere, just like Google has incorporated their voice applications into everywhere now. So let's move on from software and let's start talking about, this is still kind of software, but Apple TV and watchOS. So not only with the software do we hope to see some updates from there, but actually hardware. First, let's talk about Apple TV. So the 4th generation Apple TV came out last year, and it had a huge software redesign, which I love. The software redesign still has a lot of bugs that they need to fix, I think. I wish they had been pushing out a couple more software updates, but this close to WWDC, they're pretty much going to save all updates for a big update if they decided to do a tvOS update. And so one of the biggest things is if you watched the Google I.O. Or if you watched me and Greg's podcast about that, then you will know about Google Home, which is kind of their speaker, home automation type thing. And so it's rumored that Apple's going to have kind of the same type of thing, or some type of virtual reality, either headset or box or something like that. And then people and rumors started to come out that instead of having a separate application or separate box for that, they'll find a way to integrate virtual reality or home automation into the Apple TV itself, which I think is really, really smart. Because when the Apple TV updated last year, the price is pretty high in my opinion. It's, I believe, $150 and $199 for a 32 and a 64 gig, I believe, are the storage options. And so I think that's pretty high for just a Apple TV use, especially considering, and I always know I compare Google to Apple, but compared to the Google Chromecast, it's just crazy how much more it is, because the Chromecast is $30. Let's see. Is the audio way out of sync? I'm sorry about that. I know we were trying to fix that on me and Greg's podcast, so I'll try to get it fixed for next time. I don't think there's a whole lot I can do right now, unfortunately, but I appreciate you pointing that out. If you can let me know how much of a delay it actually is, like if it's just slightly off or if it's like, a 5-second delay from audio to video, I'd really appreciate that to see how I can fix it. I'm going to continue on here. So, so I would love to see virtual reality. I'm becoming obsessed with, and I love everything about it. And I would love to see Apple come out with their own kind of version of virtual reality, be it a headset or anything. Clap? Okay. Ooh. I'm sure you're using that to check the audio, and I appreciate you, alternate source. So with the watch, I don't know if we're going to see hardware. There's no big rumors about new hardware. There haven't been any leaked specs or leaked hardware showing that. We really don't know still if what type of refresh rate the watch is going to have. If it's going to be like the phone and it's going to be a every year type of thing, or if it's going to be like Macs, which really get a new update every 3-ish years or so. 1.5 second delay. Thank you. That's a pretty bad delay, and I am terribly sorry for the people watching. I will do my best to fix that. If you want to see a non-issue synced, you can go to the Periscope broadcast. What is up, Anthony BSPP? I don't believe there's any audio delay on the Periscope version, so if you want to have a clean broadcast there, feel free to follow me on Periscope. Just initial focus is the username. But with watchOS, the biggest reason I actually sold my Apple Watch was the fact that it's just terribly slow. Even with watchOS 2 came out, it was just god-awfully slow. And for something that is supposed to be significantly faster than taking my phone out and checking a notification there, then it's really going to be an issue for Apple to come out with more software updates or whole new hardware. I'm not really sure what's going to fix it. All I know is when I tried the Gear S2 and played with a couple other Android smartwatches, I was like, yes, this is the way that, wearables should be. It really needs to be just a lot more faster. I mean, the Apple Watch is beautiful. I loved the craftsmanship. Apple obviously always is very, very good at craftsmanship, but the speed is just not there. And I think if you buy a sport watch, the $300-ish one, I think it's worth $300. It's fast enough to work for that. But I had the $700 stainless steel Milanese one, and it was just completely bogus for that amount of money. The $17,000 one and all the gold ones, I can't imagine how those people feel. Granted, if you have $17,000 to spend on a watch, you probably don't care too much either way. But I'm sure there are some watch edition owners out there who are not too pleased. All right, so let's move on from that and talk about other hardware here. The first is a Mac Pro. So I am currently, the YouTube live stream is working off of a base Mac Pro from 2013. So that is the first trash can edition. So it has been 3 years since an update. And I'm not even talking just a small or just a big refresh new design. I don't think any pro out there is expecting a new design. Apple said in 2013 that they wanted a design to last them another 10 years, which I'm fine with. I personally love the design of the Mac Pro, but they haven't updated any of the processors. I mean, maybe they were waiting to see what, NVIDIA and AMD and Intel and all the different, graphics and processor companies were going to do. But I think it's completely absurd that in a ever-changing market that is computers and computer parts, to have, really 3-year-old graphics and processors. Sure, it's fine for what I do, and it's probably fine for what most people do, but I think it's still unacceptable that they haven't come out with even a Intel processor bump or anything like that. So the Mac Pro, I would love to see a refresh, not in design, not in anything like that. If they do it, the only hardware changes I would see is moving to Thunderbolt 3, which is also that USB style port, which I would love to see. I'd be super sad because I probably won't get it right away since this computer is still working fine for me and I don't have any USB 3 peripherals. But mostly I would love to see something that could handle virtual reality. I think VR is going to be the biggest jump and the biggest thing we see that will come about in computers for the next while. And I would love to see Apple get into the VR game. And in order to support, I have my Mac Pro boot camped, so I went on the Windows side and I did the HTC little demo. You can check how much or if your computer could handle the HTC Vive or things like the Oculus Rift, and it just completely failed. And I know I have the basic one, but just for kicks, I went to Micro Center and priced out a $3,000 custom PC, since mine is $3,000 Mac Pro. And obviously you can build a not just VR ready, but and just insane computer for that amount of money. So the Mac Pro needs a refresh. It needs something done to it. And yeah, it just really, really needs it pretty badly. So next up are MacBook Pros and maybe MacBook Airs. MacBook Pros, there are some interesting rumors about. Obviously, the big one is that everyone wants is to come in multiple colors, just like the MacBook. I know half the reason I got the MacBook was the fact that it's space gray, and it just looks super awesome. So to have a space gray, 13 or 15 inch MacBook Pro with Retina display, I think would be killer. It would look beautiful. Some of the other big rumors, obviously, again, is Thunderbolt 3, that USB-C integration. There have been some rumors that have come about that show some leaked footage. Let me see if I can pull it up for you guys. Here we go. But the most interesting one that came about was on all Macs, there at the very top, you have the top keystroke of keys. Let's see if I can do this. So right up here, this top, which always holds, that guy up there, which always holds things like the volume rockers, the display brightness, things like that, have always lived up there. And this latest rumor points to there's no audio right now coming from YouTube at all. That is not fun. Okay. Lose audio when I show the screen. Thank you. I very much appreciate you, alternate source. You have been a great resource. I haven't done main broadcast before, so that's why I still have some of these technical issues. So I really appreciate you sticking with me and helping me through it, basically. But anyway, the most interesting thing that I've seen about these pictures is the fact that at the top, they seem to not have all those buttons anymore. And the rumor is that it will be some type of OLED touch panel, which is a newer rumor, but I would absolutely love that to happen. That would be very, very cool, because that means that it could become whatever you want. So for example, some things I could see is obviously by default, I'm sure it'd have all those buttons that you're used to, but hopefully they would open it up to work with. I'm sure they would partner with companies like Adobe. I'm sure for graphic artists such as myself and, Photoshop and Premiere with video editing, if you could have customizable shortcuts, kind of like the Razer Stealth or Razer Blade, one of their laptops had a customizable trackpad that you could change to be a video screen or be something else. Create a podcast. Thank you. And once I fix audio issues, I would love to do a podcast. I actually have a podcast with Greggles TV. It's called Techploid. You can follow their own YouTube channel or just follow us every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 6 p.m. Pacific Time. You can check that out. So if you want to see a podcast, Pierto del Franco, check that out. But yeah, I would absolutely love to see an OLED little touch panel at the top. That'd be really, really cool. And I could see 1,000 different uses for that. So what do you guys think? Would you like to see? I mean, I would love to see an OLED panel for the normal screen anyway, but definitely at least implement it into the keyboard somehow. That would be very, very cool. What do you guys think? Would you like to see OLED get into the Apple world? Well, technically already is. A lot of people forget the Apple Watch is an OLED screen, and that's half the reason the battery life is so much better than a lot of other watches that just have an LCD screen or something. So imagine I agree. I want the world to go OLED as well. There's no reason not to, really. I mean, the best color reproduction. I know there were some downsides besides cost when it was brand new, but I'm no expert on OLED. But after seeing OLED TVs and some other screens. The battery saving capabilities, having that like always on feature that the S7 Edge and S7 has. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to go OLED anymore, which is cool. And then one of the last hardware pieces that I have that is rumored that I have wanted ever since I left Apple is a 5K display. So 2 years ago, Apple came out with their 5K Retina iMac, their 27-inch 5K. And it is a gorgeous screen. And it was based off of a Dell panel, I believe. And what was crazy was the iMac was actually cheaper than just the Dell panel if you bought it by itself. So 2 years later, I'm sure it's a heck of a lot cheaper. The Apple Thunderbolt display that costs $1,000 right now is, in my opinion, not worth half that. The only reason, there are two reasons, I'm going to go on a rant about displays here for a second. There are two reasons to buy the Apple Thunderbolt display. One, if you just really like Apple, obviously it's going to come with, if you have Apple Care, it's going to be covered under that. You know that it's a good brand and it's going to be solid quality. The second reason is if you really care about Thunderbolt daisy chaining. A lot of monitors don't have Thunderbolt, but a lot of monitors do now. So that's not too much of a reason anymore. But it's just crazy thick. It's as thick as the old iMacs, and it's just absurd. It's $1,000 still. They never changed the price point. My secondary monitor, which is a Asus PB27Q, I believe is the model number, is under $400 now on Amazon, and it's a 2560 by 1440 IPS panel. It basically has better specs, better contrast ratio, better specs than the $1,000 Thunderbolt display. And my main monitor, which is my favorite monitor of all time. Hello, Sissy Co. My favorite monitor of all time, and my main monitor, which is the LG 31MU97, which if you look up any review, pretty much every review out there is in love with the monitor. Is actually I got for $1,400, which still is a better deal than the Thunderbolt display. But now it's on Amazon for like $850. That's crazy. I want to pick up a second one so bad. But that is the best monitor you can buy, in my opinion, for that price point. So that rumors are finally starting to come out that Apple will finally update its display. And what's sad is the only rumor that points to it is a recent one that the stock supplies in Apple stores of Thunderbolt displays is pretty limited, which a lot of times can mean it's really one of two things. One is just supply issues. But if we continue to see the lack of stock in Thunderbolt displays for the next, week or two, I think that is a good sign that we may finally have an updated display. Am I going to buy one? It would have to be one that stick to that $1,000 price point, because if they make a 5K display and make it $2,000, it would have to have a lot more in it than just a display to be worth that money, in my opinion. I could see them going to, $1,200 or $1,500, but I just don't think it'd be worth it. I think they need to stick to that $1,000 price point. It would be very difficult for me to want it. I have loved this LG 31-inch 4K monitor for a long time. It's 99% RGB, not sRGB. It's 100% there. So color accuracy, great contrast. It's a 17:9 aspect ratio. So if you're a cinematographer, it's actually true cinema aspect ratio. 4K. Would I love 5K? Absolutely. Add as many Ks as you want. I'm sure within 5 years, all these things will be 8K. Doesn't matter. But I would love to see an updated display, not just for personal reasons, but for everyone out there. Everyone who buys a Thunderbolt display in the past 2 years, in my opinion, have just been ripped off. I worked for Apple for almost 4 years, and I just hated selling that thing because it just wasn't worth the price after the first year or two that it was available. And yeah, so that is usually the way WWDC goes. We've talked about iOS 10. We've talked about the new macOS. Those are a given since pretty much everyone attending the event is going to be a developer. WWDC stands for Worldwide Developer Conference again, so it's all about the software, and then all the hardware that follows after it is kind of just more of a hopeful type of thing. We hope to see new hardware, and we hope to get some new toys to play with. So you won't see the iPhone 7 there. You probably won't see a Apple Watch hardware there. The hardware that we're hoping to see is I do want to see new hardware, and if that's a euphemism, that's a good one. Thank you, Periscope. I would love to see a new Mac Pro, and I would love to see a 5K display, and the new MacBook Pros. I think the MacBook Pros are the only thing that right now are the only, not given, but closest thing to probably confirmed. There's been a lot of rumors and a lot of part leaks about those, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if they have that. The Mac Pro, we haven't heard anything about, and the 5K display, the only thing that we have to base it off of is the latest rumor that the stock supplies are going down. So yeah, that is hopefully going to be WWDC. It's June 13th through 17th. If you don't already know, they always have the keynote on the first day, so it will be Monday, June 13th, and it will be live broadcasted as they always do. And let's see, it will probably be 1 o'clock EST because it's usually 10 a.m. Pacific. And yeah, those are pretty much most of the details. I really appreciate everyone who has hung around to watch. I really appreciate, let's see, Greg popped in the beginning, and he put some input in, which was cool. Alternate Source has been awesome. I really apologize for people watching the YouTube live stream with the unsynced audio. I'm sure it's still that way. Yeah, I'm using OBS, so if you guys have any knowledge of fixing that audio sync issues, it's definitely not Wi-Fi because I have fiber internet, but definitely hit me up on Twitter. It's an @InitialFocus LLC, as you can see to the side here. Definitely message me or tweet at me if you have a fix for it, because for me and Greg's podcast tomorrow, Techbloid, I'd love to fix it there, as well as I love doing live broadcasts. But as Alternate Source pointed out before, audio is everything. So I could have a crappy webcam, but if my audio is crap, a lot of people may not watch. So I'm going to stop rambling on here. I really appreciate everyone who has watched, and I'm super excited for WWDC. Let me know if you'd like to see a live stream during the actual event. That would be cool. But yeah. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.